Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It. I'm RJ.
I'm unique.
And I'm Khalil.
Every day, just like you, we find ourselves trying to make sense of this crazy thing that we all call life. As peers in the healthcare profession, we find ourselves discussing and debating many different topics. After many heated debates, we decided to both expand upon these topics and give them to you from our viewpoints as licensed therapists and social workers. If this is your first time here, we'd like to thank you for checking us out, and we hope that you'll stay and become part of the tribe and participate in the conversations with us. So today we are going to be talking about embracing the change. Life is not set in stone, nor is it static. It has been said that the only thing that remains constant in life is the changes that we go through. With that being said, most of us find it difficult to accept change. Heck, some of us even fight it. So please join us as we unpack this topic and get into it. So for me, I actually am okay with change. Being a kid, and because of the nature of my parents' jobs, we moved every 2 to 3 years. So I didn't have a choice but to be okay with change. You know, having to pick up, start over, and meet new friends, go to a new school. Everything was new every 2 to 3 years. I didn't have the opportunity or the luxury to like really set down and have roots for real. So that translated over into me being an adult. And so like when it comes to change, I'm not a person that is looking to change all the time, but am I bothered by it? No, I'm not. What do you guys think?
I'm a lot like you. I moved around every 2 to 3 years, but that also made it difficult when things did not change rapidly because I was like, oh, I'm only going to know these people for 2 years. So once they start becoming annoying, I'm leaving. I don't have to stay here until I did have to stay somewhere and I had to work through my own issues of like, you know what, you may be a little controlling in this area, or you have some idiosyncrasies that do not line up with or play well with other people, and you need to learn to work through those. And so then I was forced to change me instead of my location, which is what I was used to. And that's a lot harder because you have to be honest with who you actually are and not rely on, I guess, the fact that people are wowed by your shiny newness.
Right. Right. The funniest thing is the topic. You said change. The only thing that comes to my mind is, especially as a clinician and working in the social work field, is people hate change. That's the only thing that, because I'm so wired to accept that certain people don't want to change. Anytime I meet a client, a patient, and especially working inpatient like I have over the last few years, I worked inpatient with Rajamel as well. And you notice that
I think we all worked inpatient with Rajamel. Let's be
yeah. Rajamel was like a patient. He was like a patient. Let me tell you, Rajamel was my therapist. And it's pretty funny because we worked together for a pretty long time. He was the therapist, and I was one of the techs there. And so, you know, I gleaned a lot from him. But the funniest thing is we would talk about these patients who didn't want to change. They would look at their life, and, you know, when you talk about substance abuse, mental health, we talk about the stages of change, and they'd always be in this contemplation mode, which you see that ambivalence, right? But that's like, and the funniest thing is, you know, I only wanted to apply this to mental health, substance abuse. That's people in general.
People in general.
Yeah, they don't want to change. They get comfortable with being, because there's fear in change. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you hit on something when we were talking about comfort and uncomfortability, right? And I talk about this with some of my clients. It's comfortable to tell ourselves a lie. Yeah. And everyone's like, what? No. It is. It's comfortable to be like, yep, I didn't get the job because they didn't like me. I didn't get it because I was a woman. They're discriminating against me.
Yeah, I'm black.
And I'm not saying that people don't discriminate.
Yes.
I'm not saying that.
We're not saying that.
But the truth of the matter might be you were not qualified. You did not present your best. You went in there expecting for your laurels to be the thing that carry you, and it wasn't enough, right?
Right.
Your relationship ended because you had some character stuff you needed to work through.
Right.
I didn't want to say defects, you know, but you're telling the truth.
But
since we're telling the truth. But yeah, it's so
truth.
you have some childhood bruising that you did not work through, and you punished your partner with that, right? You had some coping skills that were not adaptive. They were very maladaptive in the space of your new situation, and they caused you to lose that relationship because you or to lose that position. But I think in being comfortable, we to be comfortable, you have to lie.
Right.
When you
Well,
start to tell the truth, then you become uncomfortable, and that opens up the door for growth.
well, when you see people who are, because you guys see people one on one, you see people who are comfortable in the dysfunction, right? And we talk about some of the psychological things that are going on when people are comfortable in dysfunction. If that's all I've known, all right, it is a lot more comfortable for me to be in chaos. If that's all I've known, when people grow up in certain environments and it's very hectic, everybody's closed minded, all right, that's comfortable. So when they get into a relationship with someone who's abusive, verbally, mentally, there's someone who actually oppresses them. All right, that stuff doesn't bother them. And it's kind of scary because I'm from the outside looking in as a clinician, but because I've had certain experiences in my life, I know that they're going to need a lot more motivation to change. And we do the motivational interviewing, we start talking to people, but man, the chaos is so much easier for people to accept if that's all they knew. Being in peace is difficult for some people. Like you were talking about it earlier, Unique. Like when I didn't have to change environments, I didn't have to bounce around. I had to deal with me. And that's very scary, having to deal with you. Why are you not comfortable when things are peaceful? It's a problem with that.
Well, I think people are comfortable until confronted with something other. And that could be a tragic life experience,
Right.
a new job, a new love, um, sometimes for women or even men, having a baby, right?
Right.
Introducing a new family member, losing a key family member. So there are times in our lives where, yeah, you may have grown up and have matriculated through life and certain things are comfortable, but all of us have those moments where our comfort is challenged, right?
Right.
This is why people end up in therapy because their comfort
Yeah.
was challenged, and someone said, "You don't do
Yeah.
something about it, I'm leaving you," or they did have
Mhm.
someone that left them, and so during that time frame, right, that juxtaposition where either I stay the same and go with what I always know, or I err on the side of there might be more and I do something different. That's the sweet spot when you're talking about change because if you're honest, if you're honest and 100% honest with yourself, you can say, there's more out there. And I didn't allow myself to see that more. And
Right.
also, I want it, right? I think we don't talk about that enough with change. Like, change is always scary until you want to do it.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of people, like what you said about, like, especially the last part about the scary piece, I think that for a lot of people, staying to what I know is safe.
Mhm.
Whereas trying something new it's an uncalculated risk.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of us, everything that we do has risk.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Rather you go right or go left, go up, go down, there's risk associated with everything that we do in our
Mm-hmm.
lives. When you do the same thing, just rinse and repeat over and over and over again, the risk is already calculated for you. You know
Right.
what you know what to expect. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
now when you're trying something new, you're splashing something different in, it's something that you can't account for. And so for some of us, what ends up happening is when it comes to doing anything different or anything that's new, it requires both faith and obedience.
Mm-hmm.
Faith that everything is going to work out, and then obedience into remaining true to that path that you're walking in front of you. And for a lot of us, we either lack one or both of those things, and that can sometimes keep us in place and keep us from growing to a new place in life, or even improving where we currently are. I think that for some of us, like I said, that fear and just, hey, this is what I know, and
Right.
I'm not going to try anything any different because I know this, I know what's going to happen. Whereas if I try something different, I don't know what's going to happen.
But I think you hit a key point when you talked about fear being the the thing that holds us back from change. I tell my clients fear is very real, whether it is something that we can touch or it's imagined, right? There was great reason why you don't want to go ahead, but is that enough not to? If I remember my mom telling the story when I was learning how to walk. Before I learned how to walk, I think I rolling off the bed or something like that. And I didn't get hurt badly, like by rolling off the bed. But when it was time for me to walk, she says, "I will hold my chest." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Why does she keep holding her chest?" So I would be walking like this, just holding my chest, walking. And so my mother just decided that I was afraid because I had gotten hurt. Right? When there is fear, instead of leaning into the fear, ask yourself, why am I so afraid? What hurt me that created this logistic emotion, right? That's because the fear is the way of keeping the body safe from further harm, from further damage. So when we are afraid, instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to be scared and do it anyway. Why am I scared?
Right.
What happened that created this fear? And working through that. And sometimes it means going back to those places that are uncomfortable, right? Looking at our early caregivers or situations that we may have created for ourselves. Why did I even stay in that situation, right? Why did I stay in the abusive situation? Why did I stay in the toxic environment? Why did I do those things? Why was it that I leaned into the fear and instead of finding a solution, what was keeping me back? And sometimes it's an injury that we never really discussed. We didn't work through, we didn't fully process. And when we give ourselves permission to go back to that uncomfortable spot and say, hey, I was really hurt here. And sometimes you don't get to do it with a person, but you can find that healing within yourself, right? That we talk about reparenting in therapy all the time. And it's a buzzword in mental health spaces. But that act of reparenting where you go back to those spaces where you were hurt, where you were vulnerable, you didn't feel love, you were manipulated, your trust was violated, you were obedient and it still hurt you. You're able to go back to those spaces and say, I was hurt and it was not right.
Right.
However, it will not stop me, or it does not define the destiny for me. It doesn't define where I get to go after this. But if you hold on to fear, it does. Whatever happened to you begins to be the thing that defines you, not even fear. It's whatever happened that you're not willing to address. That thing will limit your opportunity to change, to grow, and be the best version of you.
Right. Unique, you're talking about going to that uncomfortable space, right? And obviously, those events have already happened, and the person has to go back in their mind and kind of relive it a little bit. And there's a lot of trauma associated with that. There's a lot of psychoeducation that needs to be done with people when they're going back through that journey. So, even though you could do it yourself, there has to be somebody usually there to guide you through it, right? And it's not like people could not do that themselves. It's just that we prefer as clinicians that someone be guiding you through it, because it is a difficult walk. Peeling back all those layers, right? Having that onion peeled back, and then all of a sudden you're left on your lonesome or by yourself. Some of those things, especially those stuck points that you're talking about, the injury that happened, some of those things, they are so traumatic to someone that when we fast forward their life, we see why they're scared. Mm-hmm. We see why they're stuck where they're at. And there becomes there needs to be some cognitive diffusion. There's some other things that need to go on. But once they accept that, hey, that thing happened back then, and it's time for me to make a commitment to move on, it's kind of, you're at this point where if you don't get help, that's kind of where I'm at with this. If you don't get help, you might be stuck there for a long period of time without someone there to help. I believe people need help to get past that. Sure, you could do it yourself, but I believe people need help. That's what I've kind of run into So you're not stuck in that cycle, and you're not unable to change. Well, you need someone to help you bridge that gap. So when we're doing these mental health podcasts, I think some, especially African Americans, well, everybody's gone through that. Everybody had that happen to them.
Everybody.
It doesn't mean that what happened to you is any less horrible or difficult than anybody else. But right now, you're not moving forward. You're stuck, and you need someone to help you.
More than you being stuck, eventually it will cause further harm than good, right? I injured my knee when I was like 15, 16. My dad is a Marine, so he said, everything's fine. Get up and walk on it. And I did. I did not go to the doctors. I knew that. And I had health insurance. It wasn't because, we were Black and didn't have health insurance. We did. We had insurance. Right. The man said, I was good. He told my mom, the girl is fine. 7, 8 years later, I'm in grad school working at a psych hospital, and I was probably like 23, 24, not able to walk up and down steps. Went to the doctor. He says, you have 0 cartilage left. You will have arthritis in your knee. What in the world happened? I was just like, I had an injury. He was just like, no, that was more than just a little slight fall. Like, ma'am, you injured your knee. You should have gotten it fixed. Years later, probably like a good 20 years later, I still did not get the knee fixed. I still have even more issues with the knee, and it has gone over to my other knee.
Got worse.
It's bad. Right. It got worse. Eventually, I probably will have to have a knee replacement over something that could have been prevented if I just went back to the injury site and said, hey, now that is injured, I might have to go back and get like retroactive surgery to fix whatever happened. But that healing process would have been a lot shorter and more effective without having to get a full knee replacement than now in my 30s.
Unique, I'm going to stop you right there. Notice what she said. My other knee started to hurt because I'm overcompensating from the one that's damaged, right? Same thing goes with our mental health, man, because I'm going to overcompensate because of these injuries. Some of these things that I'm hiding, I'm going to overcompensate in other areas, and other areas get hurt in my life. I can't have proper relationships. I don't know what it is to love my child the right way. All these different things start to affect me. Come on, can't keep a job. Those things, the list gets longer and longer. And people, that when you said that, it just hit me because I've seen people get hurt. They'll get a leg injury. Next thing, their back hurts, their neck hurts. And it's crazy because it's the same thing with mental health, which is so scary, very scary. I'm sorry for interrupting. Please go back.
No, you're fine. I just use that analogy because sometimes we think of mental health outside of our bodies, but our brain is a part of our body. It is the central processing unit of the whole body. It tells the rest of the body what to think, feel, and how to behave. And so we have to think of that organ as one that's very important, right? If I take care of this organ literally controls everything else. I tell people dementia is one of the saddest disorders there is. People say, why? It's just a person losing their memory. I said, no, because dementia, eventually the brain will forget to eat. It forgets to take a breath. And you have to watch somebody die like that. They're like, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, because you don't think of the brain literally controlling everything. But it does. It does. And so we think we kind of separate the brain being the functioning organ that controls the body to the mind. And how is the brain and the mind connected? The brain is the organ. The mind is how the brain puts out information. Right. Our mind is how that information is spread throughout. And so when you're thinking about a concept such as change, the brain is the mind, the mind is the canvas that the brain paints on and says, well, this is how we will paint the world. Right. This is how others will see you. This is how others will be able to identify how your brain works based on what the mind says. But sometimes those canvases already have paint on them because of other people's minds and other people's cognitive functioning. And so there will be times when you have to take the canvas, and while you can't wipe it clean, you do get each opportunity to use what's there to paint something new. Rajamel has pictures on the back of his wall. For those of you who don't know, he is an artist. But if I come over there and splash paint on them, will those be changed? Yes, absolutely. But would he have the opportunity to paint something beautiful from the paint splashes that I put on them? Yes, because he's an artist. He is in full control of that art. Each one of us are in full control of the painting that we have, no matter who comes and splashes paint on them. There will be times you are confronted with trauma and bruising and toxicity and just life being life, but you still have the opportunity to restructure, reframe the things that have happened to you and change into something beautiful. Change is not the enemy. Change is a result of a decision not to be victim to everything that has happened to you.
Amen. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that for a lot of us, I think that for a lot of us, what it boils down to is doing and trying.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us try, but when you try, you set yourself up for, I feel like when you are just trying something, you are setting yourself up for failure, because trying, there's a 50-50 chance that you may quit at some point in time.
Right.
I'm going to try, and by saying I'm going to try versus I'm going to do, trying has a different connotation versus do. Do means that you have acknowledged in your mind that you've committed to it. Whereas when you're trying it, you're kind of half-heartedly committed to it. I may see this through, I may not. I may actually execute on this, I may not. I may put my full energy into this, I may not. And I think that once you stop with the trying versus the actual doing and just settle on doing, you fully commit to something and you can kind of see it work itself out. You put forth the effort, you put forth the time, because for most of us, like when the year resets itself, we all have these New Year's resolutions and we hope to try. And, I'm going to try to go to the gym every day. I'm going to try to eat right. I'm going to try to go to church. I'm going to try to, do Bible study. I'm going to try all these different things. And then most of us don't stick to those resolutions because we're just trying them, versus when we fully commit to something, guess what? We tend to execute that bad boy out because you've taken ownership for it. You've taken ownership for it. And I think that for a lot of us, we have to assume that ownership. We have to assume that ownership that, hey, like what you guys have been saying about our lives. Hey, my life is where it's at because of certain decisions that I've made, certain choices that I've made, and you'll hear people talk about mistakes. Something stops being a mistake after the first time. Anything after the first time, you made decisions after that. There's some decisions that were made. Yeah. And so like I've heard people talk about like I was really bad when I was younger about watching Jerry Springer and Maury Povich. And people would talk about, they were having this month-long affair with somebody, like they've been having an affair with somebody for like 6-7 months. It was a mistake. That was a mistake.
Yeah, that ain't a mistake.
It was a 6-7 month choice.
That's a relationship. There
was whole relationships because
a whole relationship.
Maybe the first time where you guys got a little intoxicated, one thing led to another before you realized y'all don't slept together. But then after that, there were choices to go meet up with the person. There was choices on, taking clothes off, keeping clothes on, where y'all was going to beat up at. Like there were subsequent choices that you at some point in time could have stopped this from going as far as.
Well, can I tell you why? Why I didn't stop? Because they were trying to stop it. Because they were trying to stop it.
Exactly.
They weren't doing it right. They were trying.
Puts the ownership on someone else or the circumstance. Doing puts the onus and the ownership on you, right? It makes the difference between completing a goal and not completing it. There is no trying in completing a goal.
Look, I don't like you and RJ today. Y'all doing too much accountability. RJ, First of all, don't you ever go into my New Year's resolution, because he named everything I wanted to do. Go to the gym, lose weight, eat better. You know what I'm saying? I'm tired of it. And then you go into, well, you're not doing it, Khalil. That's how I felt right there. I felt a little attacked.
You feel attacked?
Right? What you're saying is I ain't going to be accountable.
Listen. this is a good space for you, Khalil, because if you're
It is.
uncomfortable, this is a catalyst for growth.
I want to change.
It's your catalyst
Yeah.
for growth. Without
What about
growth,
y'all?
there is no change.
Right.
What you can do
Yeah.
is commit to not working out at the gym every day, but getting in some type of physical fitness. And that could be as simple as parking your car further than at the
walking a little
front
further to
door.
work.
Walking.
It's
It
hot
could
heat
be
in
Taking the
Alabama.
stairs instead of the elevator.
It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Walking your dog instead of just letting it go out and go to the bathroom by itself.
I walk my dog. I walk my dog a little bit. That's why he sleep right now. Hey, but no. Look, the accountability piece. It struck me a little bit because what you and RJ were talking about, the doing holds you accountable. If I'm not doing it and I'm just trying it, of course I'm going to do a half-hearted attempt because I don't really want to do it. Out of desperation causes people to do things like you go to the doctor and they say, well, hey man, you got high blood pressure or you have diabetes. You're going to have to do something now. And then out of desperation,
try this new diet. The doctor will never say, hey, I need you to try this new diet. You're about to die. Let's try this new diet. I want you to try this medication. No, I need you to take it.
I need you to take it.
They literally tell you if you don't do these things, this is what's going to happen. You know, and so for me, like I said before, actually doing something eliminates all the excuses.
Yep.
Eliminates every excuse you have. Mm-hmm. When you focus on just trying, because I remember, like, you know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I remember Yoda said, "There is no try, there's only do." If you try stuff, like I said, you set yourself up for failure because, you know, like for me, I'm a person, I do not believe in excuses. Do not, you know, like excuses, tools of the incompetent, used to build monuments to nothingness. As long as you dwell in excuses, you shall seldom succeed. And for a lot of us, we wonder why we are at where we are at because we have lived and built a monument to excuses. You know, our entire house, our foundation, our neighborhoods, whatever you want to call it, is built upon excuses. I'm not where I'm at because of this. I'm not where I'm at because I didn't do this or because that happened. Instead of taking the ownership and doing the things that were necessary to get to that point, you know? And so I think that, like I said, like when it comes to change, you got to stop trying and actually do. Execute. Like that is the big piece for me. When it comes to any new thing that comes up is instead of running from it, you run at it and execute on whatever the task is, execute on whatever the objective is, execute on whatever the problem is, because if you don't execute on the things that are low impact, you're not going to be able to execute on the things that are big impact either, that impact more than just you, you know, because like for most of us, as you get older, you start to matriculate more responsibility. Most people think, and this is where, like, when I hear kids talk about they can't wait to grow up, stay as young as you
don't want to do that.
I just wanted to work. I didn't want to grow up. I just wanted a job. I never really saw myself on my own. I just wanted a job, not even for the money part. I fantasized about growing up in Baltimore. I fantasized about the working women who had their New Balances on and their canvas tote with their heels sticking out the top. Baby, it was sexy. And I fantasized about living that life where I was walking the Baltimore City streets with my tennis shoes on and my heels in my bag, but I was unaware of the responsibility that came with that. And true to form, I did start working early. But when I started working early, the responsibility was to get up and actually go to the job, right? Be able to manage my emotions when things don't go my way at the job. I think I had my first job when I was probably like, I don't know, it was a little petty job at probably like 9. And my mom was like, you can do it, because I begged her to do this. She's like, yeah, go do it. I got there, somebody said something, I did like, oh no, I'm coming home. I hate it out here.
Quit the job.
Welcome to the work world. Well, she didn't let me quit. She told me I had to finish it out for the summer.
Look at that. Instill that resilience.
That's life. That sometimes things will not always work the way you want them to. but you learn how to focus on what you're there for. And I think like I got a scholarship for school. It wasn't like I got a paycheck because I was a kid for child labor laws in the US, but I got a scholarship for school. And she says, well, now look at your scholarship. And I was just like, I did all that? And she was like, yeah, think if you had quit. I was like, I mean, my school bill still would have got paid, but I felt a sense of pride, and that my mom not just allowing me to stick with the try, because I was trying work at 9. Come on, every 9-year-old is trying at that. I wasn't committing to doing, but my mom switched that perspective, right? Where it was, no, this is something that you've committed to, and so we're going to see it through. It may fail. My mom was a big proponent on things, on us failing fast. It could crash and burn. Let's let it crash and burn, because then you'll know what not to do.
Right.
And so we fail. Anytime we fail, that's just as kids. I remember me and my sibling, she would say, okay, now what did you learn from that? Say, oh, here we go. Or my dad, he was not a spanker, but my dad would always ask us, why would you do that? Let's think that through. Run it back for me. Why would you do it? I said, if I knew why I did it, then I wouldn't do it. He said, that's the point.
Right.
What I'm trying to show you.
Exactly.
When you make decisions, consider why you are doing them. And that was for good decisions or bad decisions. My parents would still go through that chain of thinking of, why did you make that decision? To this day, I will still think, okay, why do I want this? I'll process a purchase. I'll justify a good bag or spend a little cash. Okay. But I think, okay, how am I going to use this? What am I going to use it for? Right now, I need to spend a considerable amount of money. It's a business expense. And I am in the process of saying, okay, what are the pros and cons of going for this in this manner at this time? Is it the right time to go for it? Am I not going for it because I am afraid? And if I'm honest, a big part of me is yes, because in my career, this is a big step. Like to go to this is the next step in my career, and it's frightening. But I'm not afraid. My fear, tapping back into why am I afraid? I'm afraid because there were times when I was told no in my profession, when I was not allowed to progress, and not always because of me, because of someone else's negligence, or because I didn't know the right questions to ask. Because I didn't have that person who was in front of me to say, you need to do this or don't do this or go that way. And so that fear, that imposter syndrome came back.
That's what they call it.
Right? Imposter syndrome started to take over. And I said, oh, well, I don't know if I want to invest all this money into this program, because what if it doesn't work?
What if it doesn't work? Right.
And I've wasted it. But I said, well, if it doesn't work, so what? You'll get the money.
You learn from it. Move on and do something.
You learn the information. You'll make the money back. You can use it for something else. It's not like the knowledge was for nothing. You can use it for something else. And so I talked about it in jest of justifying a purchase of a monetary good, but there will be serious times when you have to justify a point of advancement. And I think back to those childhood experiences where I had to say, look, just do it.
Right.
So what if it doesn't work out perfectly?
Lean in the discomfort. Lean into it.
Still have the opportunity of knowing I faced a tough situation. I gave it 100%. Even if my 100% doesn't equal an A, it still was the best learning opportunity for me. I think Chance the Rapper says, he turned all his L's into lessons. And I wholeheartedly love that message. Yeah. It's not a loss if you learn something from it.
Right. But that's a part of fear, right? Who wants to spend that time actually, failing at something, right? Because there's so many connotations behind failure and this and that. But you got to put everything in context. All right. It's only failure if I didn't learn anything. I need to learn something from that. I know what not to do. I know, hey, maybe that didn't work out because of the certain time I did it or the way I did it. But if I try it in a different way, it might work out. it might be even better. I might have learned, or I might be able to help somebody else out regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So, that failure thing, like you said, a lot of people have that imposter syndrome. They're like, well, I don't even know am I worth this? Am I really good enough to do this? There's a problem when we look at things like that.
If you look at, I think it's the cleaning solution 409.
Yeah.
And it was 400. They tried 408 ways before they got to 409. And that's why it's titled 409, because they tried this.
I had no clue.
408 times before they got to the one that they wanted.
I had no clue.
Well, so literally in their branding, it's based off of these are how many mistakes we made before we made something that was a marketable product for busting out stains. And so if they can do it 408 times, 409 times, then what's your 5-10 times? Keep doing it. Try it again. But they didn't. I think the lesson there was they didn't try it 408 times the same way. No. They said, all right,
they tried something different.
We added, I don't know, Dawn dish soap this time. That didn't work. We're going to take out and add some peroxide next time. We're going to add a little baking soda, and then boom.
Right.
So there will be times when life will throw you a curveball, and it will not work out the way you planned, anticipated, strategized.
Right.
It won't. However, when it doesn't, that's the sweet spot to sit back and say, why not?
Mm-hmm.
What do I have to do to get what I want? And what am I willing to do to get it? And then, that's some of the questions I gave to one of my last clients. I said, when you ask those questions, what do I want? What am I willing to do to get it? Not what am I willing to try? What am I willing to do to get what I want? And then how do I want to be held accountable to make sure I'm doing that? That's a dangerous combination. Because if I'm honest, what I want, I have to be honest. Well, I can say what I want and not really be honest about it. But when I say, what am I willing to do to get it? That requires a way of deep honesty that most of us, it frightens most of us. And then when I make someone else make myself accountable to someone else for getting what I want,
right,
that requires not only honesty but accountability to say, all right, I can't just settle in what makes me feel comfortable. I have to be willing to do what's uncomfortable because I said I wanted that, and now I have other people counting on me actually getting that, even if it doesn't benefit them.
Well, look, that makes you a force to be reckoned with. When I'm being accountable and I'm being honest with myself and I'm going after something that I want, and if this is something that I've been thinking about and working for, I'm going to put maximum effort into it.
Absolutely, every time.
And so that makes a person a dangerous person. You can do anything with that type.
And that same level of determination, like you're saying, if it were put to accomplishing our goals, having healthy relationships, if it were put to having healthy mental statuses and having just a myriad of things, if we took that same level of concentration and put it to other areas of our lives, could you imagine the effect that would have not just on us, not just on our families and our communities, but as society as a whole?
Right.
Oh, I don't know. That kind of world looks scary to me.
Well, good people tend to make time for things they want to make time for, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. if it's something that I desperately want to do, well, I'm gonna make time for it, regardless of how inconvenient it is, regardless of how hard it's gonna be. Because even like with the example that you used about chasing a woman, if I want her bad enough, if I want to get to know her bad enough, I'll make the time. I'll go way out of my way to be able to do that. And so, like you said, if you put that time and energy into everything, just imagine how successful you'd be in every facet of your life. And I think that for a lot of us, we kind of have to, it goes back to what I said about trying and doing. We have to, kind of start taking ownership of certain things in our lives And that is what will allow us to have that energy to be able to do those things. Because, as a man, do I feel like doing everything all the time? No, I don't. There are some things that I have energy for, and then there are other things that I just really don't have the energy for. But because it is assigned to me, it is in my lane of traffic. Guess what? Regardless if I feel like doing it or not, that's mine. And because it's mine, I'm going to action it every single time, regardless if I feel like it or not.
What you guys were talking about earlier, I know Unique touched on it a little bit. When we don't let our emotions get in the way of what we're trying to do. You said your mom, forced you to go back out there at 9 years old, regardless of how you felt. It's the same thing with us. When we set something in front of us that we want to do, all right, it talks about that in the 48 laws of power. If you don't have mastery over your emotions, you can't do much, because you're going to feel like quitting. You're going to get deterred. You're going to have some bad news. You're going to have some issues with the people you work with, but you can't quit.
Everything.
You can't quit. You know what I mean?
That's a lot of stuff to quit. You can't.
Yeah. You'll quit life. You'll quit on life. And when you meet people who have they have trouble with anger, they have trouble with resentment, they have trouble with being able to calm themselves during times of panic, anxiety issues. They don't have the resilience to bounce back. They can't fight. You already lost the battle right there if you can't control your emotions. So when we talk about change and people needing to change, there has to be some work done on the inside as well. Not everything's going to revolve around stuff on the outside, the external. You have to do some internal work. When we talked about moving past those stuck points, we talking about leaning into some of that discomfort. You're not going to feel good sometimes. You are going to have times where you're brought back to that traumatic space. You got to fight through it if you want change. Change does not come easy. The doing part that RJ kept talking about, that's what keeps people from doing this, because they tried a little bit and that was uncomfortable. I ain't doing that no more. That's when people are giving up, is because they reach the point where they're being challenged. All right. Whether it be emotionally, mentally, physically, you're going to have to be challenged. If you want some change, you're going to have to get challenged, or you're going to be stuck right where you've been. And then you get upset because you see other people moving on and matriculating through life, getting the blessings. Well, those blessings are there for you too. Who said you can't get those?
One of the things that I always tell my younger brother and my sister is change has to come from within before it comes from without. Right. Meaning that change has to start inside of you. You have to decide at some point in time, enough is enough, and I want to have something different than what I currently have. Then once you decide it in here, you then can start executing out there. Right. Meaning if I want to lose weight, it starts in here. You got to have that conversation with yourself, look down and say, I don't like there's going to be some this. I don't like looking at this. I got to. And then from there, once you have, listen, man, once you look down at you can from there start executing externally, like the things you need to do. Start, eating better, start walking more, drinking more water, incorporating working out throughout the week. You start doing those things. But for a lot of us, and this is where for a lot of us we start to mess up at, is because we are so conditioned to instant gratification, right. Everything being microwavable. I can cook some noodles in the microwave and in 2 minutes I got something to eat. Everything is not going to be microwavable. Sometimes like even like things like going to the gym. You go to the gym, you're not going to see the change immediately. You're not. Normally, after 3 to 4 weeks of going to the gym consistently, you'll start to see you tone up more. You start to see that your body's kind of starting to change. It doesn't happen overnight, but that's where, like I said, where I was saying earlier about faith and obedience. You have to have the faith to continue to see the image of where you want to be in here. Regardless of whatever the journey may look like, you got to have the faith to see it in here and stay on that path. And that's where the obedience will carry you across the finish line, because the obedience of sticking to what my plan is, which is to change this XYZ thing going on in my life or about myself. by remaining obedient to what my plan is and what the faith is, it's going to carry me across the finish line, and I will see the changes come to pass. But for most of us, like I said, we, being microwavable and wanting instant gratification, because we live in a technological age where I can make a whole meal in under 30 minutes.
Right.
And so because I can make a whole meal in under 30 minutes, I expect everything in my life to be that simple too.
I was looking for something in one of my books that I wanted to point out, but just, you guys know how I feel about that statement where it's just like, oh, because it's quick, right? It's quick, I can get it fast. Mm-hmm. Just because something is satisfying does not mean it's edifying. Right. A bag of chips when you're hungry is definitely satisfying. But 15 minutes later, you're going to be hungry again. It wasn't edifying. Yeah. Right. And you keep eating bags of chips, you're going to end up having to go to the gym for your clogged arteries, right?
Yeah.
So initially, they were satisfying, right? They met the discomfort, and so it put you back in a comfortable space, but it was not edifying. To cook a meal when you are hungry is the most uncomfortable thing ever. It's difficult. Okay? And I'm not want a meal that you gotta like chop the veggies for, get the rice going, put the
blood sugar dropping low while you.
God, it's uncomfortable. But boy, when you sit down and you see that meal on your plate and you eat it, child, the itis that comes after that is unmatched. I never got the itis after eating a bowl of noodles. Never.
Especially the instant.
Never from Top Ramen. What is it? The Anita's never. I ain't never caught the itis after eating that. But you talk about something else that took some time, some effort. Baby, it's something different. It is something different. So while I'm not trying to put nobody to sleep, but you got to ask yourself a lot of times, am I looking to be satisfied or edified? And edification always is going to take a little bit more work, but the end result is much, much more, has much more lasting benefits than just the initial satisfaction of doing it quick.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I mean, I could put this on our live from if you guys watched that live.
Right. This one back. You want to be satisfied or edified?
I'm gonna bring this one back.
Preach.
In our last live, we talked about sample sizes. A sample size is only going to be satisfying.
I want the whole thing.
Somebody is giving you every part of them. Intimacy, transparency, loyalty, trust, faithfulness, respect, emotional depth. When a person is giving you all of that, baby, it's hard not to feel edified. You will, even if you break up with that person, that person will go down in your memory bank as like,
right.
I can't forget them.
That person.
They was a good person. Like that was a good relationship. It ended poorly. Like we didn't end. Like it ended, and it could be because of you. But you'll never forget them because at that point it was a level of edification. You're like, yo, that wasn't just a snack. That was a meal. I had something good with that person. So, and I mean that's not even just romantic relationships. It's friendships, working at certain companies. I have bosses that were edifying. Of course, I don't work for those companies anymore, but just having interacted with those, a lot of times it was women, surprisingly. I have had lady bosses that were extremely edifying, and I've walked away like, yo, that was a powerful person. I'm happy to have known them. I'm happy to have been attached to that. I don't even know. I don't know what they're doing in their life now, but I feel better having been attached to them. And I think there are things in our life where we will have been enriched by having been in certain spaces, been around certain people, have gone through certain edifying experiences because they weren't meant to meet us at a comfortable level, but they were meant to challenge, change, and grow us.
Right.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Wonderful.
I definitely agree with that. I think that for for a lot of us, we do have to recognize like the certain phases of our life. Certain things are brought into your life, or you're brought to certain things in your life depending on the phase that you find yourself in your life. And, you know, based off of the phase that you're in, we all gain something from whatever it is that we're experiencing. So like when it comes to things like change, that's where, you know, like what you were saying about what your mom not letting you quit your job. It's funny you said that, you know, because my sister's the same way about with my niece. You know, she tells my niece all the time, you can quit something when you become really good at it.
Yep.
You know, because the thing about it though is like what a lot of people don't understand is that things that you learn in the early phases of your life help prepare you for who you're going to be on later on in your life. And my sister, your mom, giving you those life lessons of not quitting when things become difficult or things become uncomfortable or it becomes something you don't want to do, allows you to become a more, you know, well-rounded adult. Because, you know, there are things in our lives that we all don't want to do. There are things in our lives that become hard. And I think that like when it comes to change, you know, being able to embrace change, being able to embrace the suck, being able to embrace the grind of things coming at you that you don't always foresee or that you don't always have the chance to calculate for is what makes you more resilient and makes you more adaptable. You know, because if it doesn't, you know, like the cliche says, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. You know, you learn from that situation that you went through, that change that you had to grow through. And that is what is going to prepare you for other things that come up in life. And I think that for most of us, what people have to understand is like when it comes to everyday living, the better days are ahead of you. You know, no matter what you're going through now, because I think that and we've talked about this on here before, you know, for most of us, the fear will cause us to be disobedient, you know, where there are certain blessings that were placed right here in front of you. All you had to do was do this one thing or do these two things or these three things. But because I'm so afraid of what may happen, because it's not something I can physically see or physically touch, or it's not something that I'm physically familiar with, I don't execute those things. Right. And so we will miss out on blessings because we quit too soon and didn't get a chance didn't get a chance to work through those things. Because like for you know, for a lot of people, you know, like I said, we tend to give up too soon. Tend to give up too soon and don't realize that we are able to do more than what we give ourselves credit for. And I think that, you know, when it comes to things like change, you know, change is something that's good. It's good, you know, but it can have bad things that go on at the same time.
Yep. I'm reading this book now with my client and kind of for myself, right? Because most of you know, I'm newly married. And so I'm reading this book entitled Boundaries in Marriage by, let me see, I have it here. Henry Cloud and John Townsend. And one of the lessons in the book that they keep talking about is just because you didn't break it doesn't mean you don't have to fix it. And I said, oh, God. Oh! Because we will come to situations where we're like, well, I didn't do it. It ain't on me. I didn't break it. Why I gotta fix it?
Right.
Shoot, I ain't the reason why I'm this way. Why I gotta fix my behavior? Why I gotta fix my character? Shoot, this how I was raised, right? This all I ever knew. That is not an excuse to maintain your nonsense. Have to own up to the parts that are you and decide to do something different and say, what do I want? What am I willing to do to get there? And how do I want to be held accountable to make sure I'm rising up to the occasion?
Wow, Unique, I'm gonna have to get that book because that right there, especially in relationships, when you're talking about, well, I didn't break that person. I'm not the one who actually caused this person to have this type of behavior, but because I'm in this relationship with this person, it's kind of my job to fix.
It's your job to fix you. Yeah. Not even that. Because I think that's one of the things the book pointed out. Like so many times we look to fix whatever's in them. And these are Christian therapists. They're Christian psychologists. Right. And so the devastating part to me. I was just like, because I am a therapist, and just like, oh my gosh, you're saying I have to work on me? I just want to make it about him. I want to make it about the other person because that's easier. It's easier to come up with a solution for somebody else because I can see it all out, right? But it's so much harder to take that introspection and say, oh, it's me.
Wow.
I'm not as nice. I'm a little nasty. I'm a little rough around the edges. I describe myself when I'm feeling a bit obstinate. I'm a bit of a porcupine, right? I get the quills out. I'm not gonna lie. Right. I do it. I'm a bit of a porcupine to love at times.
So this book is forcing you to look at yourself and some of our behaviors and some of our reactions.
All of them.
Right.
All of them. But I think this is good for that change that we were talking about. RJ was just saying, like, in order to keep going, you can't rely on the excuse of, well, I didn't know. It's not my fault. I went through some things. So what? You want to stay there? That's where you want to die? That's the hill you want to die on? That happened? Or you want to die on the hill that, well, you know what? It happened. Live through it. Lived another day. Gonna keep fighting.
That's right.
I want to be dubbed as the fighter. I want to be dubbed as the person that no matter what happened, I kept getting up until I physically couldn't get up no more. I never want to be labeled as the person who just stood there and took it because I didn't want more. My dog was going to keep scratching me until she got up here.
She's right on time.
She has not budged yet.
She's right on time. She's like, Mommy, when is this done? That's what that was. She's right on time.
Absolutely.
So we are going to end the conversation there. This is Try Not to Overthink It signing out. I'm RJ.
I'm Unique.
And I'm Khalil.
If you like what you heard, we ask that we can be found on YouTube as Try Not to Overthink It. We ask that if you stop by the channel to like, share, subscribe, turn your notifications on because that helps the channel grow. And we want you to become part of the tribe and grow with us. If you would prefer to listen instead of watch the episode, we can be listened to on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, pretty much everywhere that you can find an audio file, we can be located. Because again, we love everyone and we want everyone to join us. But like I said, if you happen to listen to us, watch us, whichever avenue works better for you. But again, if you listen to us instead of watch us, you miss out on the faces and you miss out on the antics. So this is us signing out, and we will catch you in the next episode. Later.